Hey, I'm Robin, and today I'm going to be talking about the different programming languages that are quite popular within 2020 by looking at Indeed.com. This is basically how I'll usually go about seeing what's popular and making sure that my skills are up to date. So let's have a look. So one of the first things that I'll do is I'll go onto Indeed.co.uk. Obviously, if you're elsewhere, it would be .us or whatever it is for your locale, and then I'll usually search for my city where I'm from, but in this instance I'm going to just make it UK wide, and I'll search for a couple of different other countries to see if there's any difference around those as well. So let's have a look at the UK. So let's have a look at the UK for front-end developer. Typically what I'll expect to find is there'll be a lot of things like HTML, CSS, and I'm expecting quite a lot of JavaScript because that's quite popular at the moment. I don't like to just assume that though, so that's part of the reason why I tend to visit these kinds of websites. In order to find out what actually people are looking for, because you do tend to find more things like PHP.net, things like that. So let's take a look. Okay, so let's search the UK for front-end developer and see what comes up. Yeah, so here you can see HTML, CSS, Sass. That's obviously a preprocessor for CSS. Very powerful, worth learning, although it is a little bit on its way out now. JavaScript, bit of jQuery, Redux, interestingly enough, and also here they're looking for experience in CSS frameworks and libraries, which I would assume that means something like Bootstrap or Foundation, something along those lines. They're also interested in a bit of PHP, so looks like that's still fairly popular. Let's have a look at some others. Interim front-end developer. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but let's have a look at what they're looking for. Yeah, PHP again. I'm quite surprised with that, but it is sticking around. It's super popular still. Yeah, again, CSS, HTML, JavaScript. These are kind of like the core skills that you need as a front-end developer. So always be practicing those and keeping those up to date. Yeah, again, CSS, HTML, understanding of API integration. So these are kind of more how you go about connecting to backends and things like that. So it's less specific about the type of language that you might need to do around that. It looks like they're also asking for strong PHP and JavaScript, AngularJS. Here I'm guessing that PHP is probably going to be used for the back end, and JavaScript on the front end with AngularJS there. It's also very important to keep an eye out for the JavaScript, or whatever language, the framework that they're using, because if you're experienced in React, you might not want to apply for this job, or if you're a little bit more open-minded, you may want to pick up AngularJS and go for something along the lines like this. Let's have a look at some more. Yeah, again, good knowledge of JavaScript, other related front-end technologies such as HTML and CSS. Yeah, again and again we'll keep seeing this come up. Testing frameworks such as Jasmine, Karma, Jest, and Protractor, that suggests to me that they're more likely after someone with a bit of JavaScript. Yeah, again, PHP, C#, that's probably going to be more back-end type stuff that they're kind of going to want you to have a little bit of experience with, but I doubt they'll want you to actually code in that. And again here, JavaScript frameworks such as Backbone, Vue.js, Angular. Yeah, so totally expecting a lot of, at the moment, Vue.js, Angular and React are all very, very popular JavaScript frameworks, so expect to see quite a lot more of that. Okay, for some reason a back-end developer jobs appeared as a front-end developer search. I don't know why. Junior front-end developer at Purplebricks. Okay, £30,000 to £40,000 a year. That's actually quite high for a junior developer. So it'd be interesting to see what they want you to be actually be able to do for that amount of money. Given that as a junior you shouldn't really have that much experience. But let's have a look. Yep, so JavaScript, HTML, CSS, including Sass, some Git experience. So that's all the required stuff. So actually they're not expecting a great deal for that much. So that's not too bad. The added extras, they would like you to know a little bit of TypeScript, React, Angular or similar experience. I would assume that if you've got experience with Vue.js, that would count towards that as well. So brownie points for that. Web accessibility. Yeah, these are all extra things that would be great to have as a more experienced developer. And I don't think they'd expect you to know all of these things. They'd sort of want you to have like one or two of these and be able to be willing to pick up the rest as you go. Yeah, again, JavaScript, CSS, jQuery. HTML there. Yeah, again, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, different frameworks. Quite surprised that jQuery keeps coming up, as that seems, I honestly thought that was something that was dying out quite a bit, but it seems to be coming up quite a lot in these searches. Fully remote JavaScript front-end developer role. Yeah, again, JavaScript specifying React there with CSS, HTML, and Python's desirable. Again, I guess that's going to be more back-end type thing. Perhaps it's probably where the back-end meets the front-end, so the front-end might be loaded onto Python templates where that's where the React actually hooks in. You might need to know a little bit of Python, but and that's probably why they've put desirable here rather than as a necessity. So you might be expected to pick up a little bit of it, but I wouldn't worry about that too much. Yeah, my takeaway from this is JavaScript, CSS and HTML. Those are the core things for the front-end developer here. Yeah, again, HTML, CSS, JavaScript seems to be the main language that I'm finding here at the moment. In a second I'll take a look at a different country, perhaps the US, to see if there's any difference. Yeah, again, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Let's go through a couple more. Yeah, Angular, Node, HTML, JavaScript. Yeah, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. See if I can find any that aren't. Yeah, so here we've got a .NET Core with a React front end, so it's technically still HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but as they're using .NET, they may want you to know a little bit of that. Okay, yeah, so in the UK, it's looking like the majority of places are looking for JavaScript-based developers. Obviously, HTML, CSS is a given. That seems to be coming up with pretty much every search. But the main programming language for the front end seems to be JavaScript. I can't seem to find anything other than that at the moment. So let's take a look at results from the US and see if there's anything that comes up differently. Yeah, again, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Experience of WordPress. So interestingly enough, in this one it doesn't say anything about PHP, but if you are going to be working with WordPress, you will need to know a little bit of PHP. Not too deep, but enough to know how to template with WordPress. Let's have a look, see if we can find anything that doesn't involve just JavaScript. Yeah, Angular, so JavaScript again. Yeah, React, Vue, or Angular. These seem to be really, really popular at the moment, so it looks like if you want to get a job as a front-end developer, especially if it's your first job, then up your game in JavaScript, and especially one of these three frameworks, because that's what's coming up quite a lot. React, Vue, and Angular, very, very popular. Here we go, interesting. Okay, so PHP's come up again, so it seems like if there's anything other than JavaScript that you might want to pick up, then perhaps it's PHP, because that's something that's come up a few different times now. Not nearly as much as JavaScript, and even here, like they're talking about React and Angular experience, so JavaScript's still heavily involved in this, so it's still worth picking up over PHP, I would say. But PHP is another thing that is coming up every now and then. I've got to be honest, I really want to find one that isn't actually JavaScript, like, at all. I want to find one that's like PHP only, or Python only, things like that, or even Ruby, just to see that there's some sort of variation around, but it doesn't seem like there is, even here. HTML, CSS, JavaScript a plus. Again, familiarity with WordPress, that would suggest that you need to know a little bit of PHP. I really think that when they post these job postings, that they really should mention PHP when they mention WordPress, because they're hand in hand. Then again, here they do say PHP skills a plus, but if they need WordPress, then it's not a plus, it's a necessity. Yeah, HTML, CSS, React, Vue, Angular. Here we go. Here's one that involves a bit of Ruby, but it's not a it says it's not a requirement. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, it just keeps coming up again and again and again. JavaScript frameworks, even in this one that mentions experience with Ruby, is a nice to have. In this example, when it says things like this, I would assume that Ruby is probably back-end related, and that they'd just like you to have a bit of experience with that just to be able to interact with it rather than actually coding it. But for the main part of the job, it looks like it just involves HTML, CSS, JavaScript frameworks, Bootstrap, and React. So again, even though I'm looking at the US here, it looks as though HTML, CSS, JavaScript in particular is pretty much key. So I'd say even in the US, so there's literally no difference between the US and the UK in terms of what people are looking for in terms of their programming language. So JavaScript is definitely something that you should be focusing on. So, like, as a conclusion, it seems like JavaScript is the programming language at the moment to keep up to date with. If there's a job in particular that wants you to learn one of the frameworks over the others, then skill up with that programming language in particular. Get used to that, get experienced with it, and apply for that job. But yeah, basically this is how I go about making sure that my skills are up to date and still relevant, and you can use this kind of method to go about looking for jobs and keeping up to date with your own skills as well. So if you feel like you're in a job that isn't pushing you towards being able to apply for any other job, then perhaps it's time to either skill up while you're still at that job or move jobs, because you constantly need to keep on top of these things. And searching the sites like Indeed are really good for finding out what people are actually looking for at the moment, just so you can stay ahead of the curve. But yeah, if you feel like this has been useful, then please give the video a like and even subscribe if you find my content useful. I'll catch you later. See you in the next one.